Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel, the place we come when family turns into a battlefield you never signed up for. If you've ever felt like the spare tire in your own bloodline, buckle up. This story is going to burn slow, then explode. Grab your coffee, turn off the lights, and let's get into it. My name is Adeline Farrow. I'm 29 now, living in a little salt air cottage just outside Charleston, South Carolina. But rewind 3 years and I was still the quiet shadow in a family that only had eyes for one star, my older sister, Lauren Harrington. In the Farrow house, that big white brick colonial on a tree-lined street in Mount Pleasant, there was one unspoken commandment. Everything, always, revolved around Lauren. Our dad, Edward Farrow, spent 34 years selling insurance policies, shaking hands at charity golf tournaments, coming home to a spotless house and a wife who made sure the silver stayed polished. Mom, Margaret, turned homemaking into performance art. Fresh peonies on the table every Sunday, monogrammed napkins, holiday cards that looked like magazine shoots. From the street, we were postcard perfect. Inside, the math never added up evenly. Lauren married Tyler Harrington 9 years ago. Tyler's family owned half the shipping docks along the Charleston Harbor. Old money, quiet power, the kind that doesn't need to brag. He handed my parents the cash to renovate the kitchen, paid off the second mortgage, even bought Mom the Mercedes convertible she never asked for. In exchange, the entire Farrow clan treated Lauren like she'd invented oxygen. She hadn't held a real job since the wedding. She called herself a brand strategist and philanthropy ambassador, which mostly meant posting curated photos from yacht fundraisers and sipping rose at garden luncheons. In our family, marrying up was the same as winning at life. And then there was me, Adeline, the younger one, the creative. I built my world as a freelance graphic designer, custom book covers for indie authors, logos for small-batch whiskey distilleries, hand-lettered wedding stationery for couples who couldn't afford the big designers. I rented a bright, messy loft in North Charleston. Exposed brick, paint-splattered drop cloths, shelves sagging under art books, and half-dead succulents. Money came in waves, feast or famine, but every job felt like mine. I never hated Lauren for her diamond life. I hated how it made me disappear. I met Julian Cole at an art and design expo in Savannah 4 years ago. He was showing large-format photographs, moody black and whites of abandoned low-country places, rusted shrimp boats half sunk in the marsh, empty rocking chairs on storm-beaten porches, Spanish moss hanging like ghosts. He had this calm, piercing way of looking at the world, like he could see the story behind every crack and shadow. Julian was a fine art photographer, limited edition prints sold through regional galleries, commercial shoots to keep the lights on. Some months we ate fresh oysters on the dock, others we split a single pizza for 3 days. But what we had was solid.
Real. My family never saw it.
Dad called it a nice side gig. Tyler smirked every time Julian's name came up. Lauren gave me those pitying head tilts. At least Adeline has someone sweet now. Thanksgiving that year, 12 months before our wedding, Julian came to Mount Pleasant. Lauren pulled up in her pearl-white Range Rover, carrying 2 bottles of Napa Valley Cabernet worth more than my monthly rent. She made sure everyone knew the price tag. I brought a cast-iron skillet of buttermilk cornbread, baked with stone-ground meal from a mill 20 minutes away. Mom set the wine on the table like it was the baby Jesus. My cornbread stayed covered. Over turkey and dressing, Dad turned to Julian with that practiced half-smile. So, Julian, photography's a passion project, right? When are you thinking about getting into something steadier? Tyler chuckled low. Lauren sipped her wine and said, Adeline's always been the dreamy one. It's cute. Julian's hand found mine under the tablecloth. He didn't flinch. He just held on tighter. What nobody in that dining room knew, what I was only starting to understand, was that Julian had quietly crossed into a new orbit. Our landlord, Mr. Elias Whitaker, a soft-spoken 69-year-old who lived upstairs in the old carriage house we rented for way below market, had been watching Julian's work for months. Elias used to own a respected gallery in Atlanta before he retired to Charleston. Tweed jackets, wire-rimmed glasses, always brewing Earl Grey on the porch while Julian printed in the downstairs darkroom. Elias never made a fuss. He'd just stand in the doorway sometimes, mug in hand, and murmur, "The contrast on that tree line. Bring it down just a hair. Let the shadows breathe." Julian would adjust, and the image would come alive. One rainy afternoon, Elias said something offhand. "Your eye reminds me of a kid I showed 20 years ago who now hangs in the High Museum." I laughed, thinking it was polite landlord talk. I should have listened harder. The months after that Thanksgiving rolled on like low-country fog, thick, heavy, impossible to see through clearly. Julian kept shooting. Derelict rice barns at golden hour, lone egrets standing in tidal creeks, portraits of old fishermen whose eyes held entire lifetimes. I kept designing, a moody thriller cover for a debut novelist, a rebrand for a Charleston speakeasy, late nights with my tablet glowing in the dark loft. We got engaged the following February. No grand production. We were walking along Folly Beach after a rain, the sand still cool and packed, waves hissing white. Julian stopped, pulled a small wooden box from his coat pocket. Inside, a slim band of reclaimed driftwood he'd sanded smooth himself, set with a tiny piece of sea glass the color of storm clouds. He didn't kneel. He just looked at me with those steady gray eyes and said, "Adeline, I want to build the rest of my days with you. Will you?" I said yes before the question finished. We cried, laughed, kissed with salt on our lips. We set the date for late May, a small ceremony on Kiowa Island, under live oaks dripping with Spanish moss, at a private beach house venue we could actually afford. Wildflowers we'd pick ourselves, a string duo of local musicians, maybe 40 guests total. Simple.
Ours.
I called my parents that weekend. Mom answered first. "A wedding? In May? That's soon, honey." No squeal, no, I'm so happy. Just logistics. Dad got on the line next. "Kiowa, huh? Pretty spot. I'll be there, Addie. I'll walk you down that aisle. You have my word." Those words felt like armor. I held onto them. Lauren texted, "Congrats, sis. Let me know if you need venue ideas or anything." Then nothing. No follow-up. No, let's go dress shopping. From the woman who once planned her own engagement party, like it was a royal coronation, the silence was deafening. Julian and I did it all ourselves. I hand-drew the invitations, soft watercolor oaks, pale sea oats, each one unique. We ordered local shrimp and grits for the reception, rented mismatched vintage chairs, painted white. I found my dress at a consignment boutique in Mount Pleasant. Ivory lace, off the shoulder, tea-length, simple enough to feel like me. The seamstress pinned it while humming hymns and told me I looked like I belonged on a porch swing at sunset. Everything was falling into place. Until it wasn't. 5 weeks before the wedding, my phone rang. Aunt Clara, Mom's sister, the family's unofficial news wire. "Adeline, sugar, are you coming to Lauren's gender reveal too? Or just your wedding? They're the same weekend, aren't they?" My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step on stairs. "What gender reveal?" "Oh, honey, Lauren's having a girl. Big party at the yacht club on Kiowa, same Saturday. Noon start. Didn't you get the invite? It's gorgeous, rose gold, everything, oyster bar, the works." I hadn't gotten an invite. I called Lauren. She picked up on the second ring, voice syrup sweet. "Addie. Oh my gosh, I was meaning to call. The club only had that Saturday open and Tyler booked it months ago. It's my first baby, you know? Huge deal for the family. But your wedding's later in the afternoon, right? People can swing by both if they hustle." My ceremony was at 4 p.m. The yacht club was on the same island, but traffic, parking, changing outfits, the sheer distance between noon champagne toasts and vows under the oaks made it impossible. She knew the geography. She'd grown up here too. I checked with Aunt Clara later. The gender reveal save the dates had gone out 3 weeks before I sent my wedding invites. Lauren had known my date for months. She booked anyway. I called Mom. "You know my wedding is that day." A long exhale. "I know, sweetheart. But this is Lauren's first child. Your dad's first grandchild. It means the world to her. Can't you maybe shift yours a week or two? Deposits aren't that bad to lose." I'd already paid non-refundable venue, catering, flowers.
Mom.
"This is my wedding. Well, not everyone has to choose. Some folks might make yours.
Some folks.
Like scraps. I called Dad next. Voicemail. Text. Dad? Still walking me down.
Read.
No reply. 3 days later, he finally answered.
Of course, Addie.
I promised. We'll figure it out. His voice sounded like someone reading a script he didn't believe. The RSVPs started coming in. One by one, family ticked no, citing the gender reveal. Coincidentally, I didn't beg. I asked once, clearly. Their answers, delivered through polite regrets and family obligations, told me exactly where I ranked. My best friend Mara, an ICU nurse who's known me since freshman dorms, sat me down one night with screenshots from the family group chat I'd long ago muted. Lauren hadn't just sent invites. She'd made personal calls. To Mom, if you skip this for Adeline's thing, it'll feel like you don't care about your granddaughter. To Aunt Clara, Tyler's whole side is coming. If we don't have the pharaohs there, it looks bad. To Dad, in a text Mara captured, Dad, Adeline will get over it. She's used to coming in second. Used to coming in second.
My own sister typed that.
And the money. Tyler still covered the mortgage, Mom's car payment, Dad's golf dues. The leash was invisible until someone tugged. That night, Julian found me on the loft floor, staring at paint chips. He sat beside me, quiet. We don't need the crowd, Adeline. We need the vows. I know, I whispered. But I wanted my dad there. Just once. He pulled me close. Then we make our own family. Starting right here. I didn't cry yet. The tears were still locked behind something harder. But something had cracked open inside me. Not broken. Just awake. The final 2 weeks before May 25th felt like walking through quicksand. Every day I checked the mailbox for RSVPs that never came. The venue coordinator called to confirm numbers. I told her 40 chairs, but inside I was already counting ghosts. Julian kept shooting, kept building the driftwood archweed wrap in sea oats and white ribbon. He didn't push me to talk about it. He just stayed close, made coffee at dawn, rubbed my shoulders when I hunched over my laptop too long, whispered, "We got this," when the silence got loud. Mara, my ride or die since college, flew in from Atlanta 3 days early. She showed up at the loft with a bottle of bourbon, takeout shrimp and grits, and zero patience for bullshit. She sat on my couch, scrolled through the family group chat she'd never been kicked from, and read aloud the messages I'd been avoiding. Lauren to the group, 2 days earlier. Everyone ready for Saturday? It's going to be magical. Dad, you bringing the good cigars for Tyler's dad. Aunt Clara, wouldn't miss it. Rose gold balloons incoming. Mom, can't wait to hold that little grandbaby girl to hearts. Not one mention of my wedding.
Not one.
Mara looked up, eyes blazing. They're acting like your day doesn't exist. Like your optional programming. I stared at the floor. I asked Dad one more time. Texted him the directions, the time, reminded him of his promise. He read it. No reply. She set her phone down hard. Then we stop asking. You walk yourself down that aisle if you have to. Or I'll do it. Hell, I'll carry you if it comes to that. The morning of May 25th broke clear and bright, the kind of lowcountry day where the sky looks painted and the marsh grass shimmers gold. I woke at 6 a.m., stomach knotted. Mara was already up, brewing coffee, laying out my dress on the bed like it was armor. My phone buzzed at 7:12.
Dad.
I answered on speaker so Mara could hear. Addie. His voice was gravel. Listen, the gender reveal starts at noon. Traffic from Mount Pleasant to Kiowa on a Saturday, we might not make it by 4.
Your mom and I talked.
We think it's best if we stay through the whole thing for Lauren. It's her first baby. You understand, right? 8 seconds. I counted them in my head while the world tilted. You promised, I said. My voice didn't crack. You looked me in the eye and said you'd walk me down. I know, honey. And I hate this. But family comes first. This is family, Dad. This is my family starting. A long exhale. You'll have other moments. Lauren only gets this once. I hung up, set the phone face down. My hands shook, but my eyes stayed dry. Mara didn't speak. She just handed me mascara and kept working. By 10 a.m., Lauren had already posted to her story, rose gold balloons being inflated at the yacht club, a long table set with oyster shells and tiny pink macarons. Caption: First look at our girl's big day. So grateful the whole family is here for this moment. Posted 3 hours before the event even started. While I was zipping my dress, we drove to Kiowa in silence mostly. Mara drove. I stared out at the palmettos whipping by, the invitation envelope still in my lap, the one with my handwriting, the watercolor oaks I'd painted by hand. The beach house venue sat tucked behind dunes, live oaks forming a natural canopy. The driftwood arch Julian built stood proud, wrapped in white gauze that fluttered in the breeze. 40 mismatched white chairs lined the short aisle, each with a sprig of sea oats tied to the back. From far away, it looked like a dream. Up close, 33 of them were empty.
7 people came.
Julian, waiting at the arch in a linen suit, eyes already shining. Mara, my maid of honor, in soft sage green. 2 of Julian's photographer friends from Savannah, quiet, kind, the kind who show up. Elias Whitaker, our landlord, in a charcoal suit that looked like it hadn't been worn in decades, silver pocket square catching the light. And 2 old college friends who'd driven through the night from Raleigh.
7.
In 40 chairs. The wind moved through the empty rows. The sea oats whispered. I stood at the start of the aisle in my lace dress, bouquet of white ranunculus and dune grass trembling in my hands. No father's arm. No music cue yet. Just me, and the weight of every empty seat pressing on my ribs. I took one step, then another, alone, until I heard footsteps behind me, slow, deliberate, steady. I turned. Elias Whitaker stood there, hat in hand, eyes soft but sure. If you'll allow an old man the honor, he said quietly, offering his arm. Your father should be here, since he isn't someone who sees you should.
My throat closed.
Not with tears, with something warmer, something fierce. This man who'd charged us half what the place was worth, who'd stood in our darkroom sipping tea and murmuring about shadows, who'd never once made us feel small, was here. In a suit. For me. I slipped my hand through his arm. Thank you, Elias. We walked. The 7 guests stood. Mara was already crying silent tears. Julian pressed a fist to his mouth at the other end. The string duo, 2 sisters from Charleston, started Pachelbel's canon. The notes floated out over the dunes. Elias leaned in as we walked. You're not alone today, Adeline. Not even close. We reached Julian. Elias placed my hand in his, stepped back, and took a seat in the front row, the first chair anyone had filled on that side. The officiant, a retired judge Julian knew from a gallery opening, kept it short. We said vows we'd written ourselves. Mine on the back of an old sketch. Julian's on a print of one of his photographs, a lone porch swing at dusk. We both laughed through tears. We both cried through smiles. 7 people clapped. The wind carried it out to sea. It was small. It was imperfect. It was enough. More than enough. The reception was small, messy, perfect. No ballroom, no open bar, no towering cake. We'd rented a long wooden table on the beach house porch overlooking the dunes. Julian's Savannah friends brought coolers of local beer and sweet tea. Mara uncorked 3 bottles of Pinot Grigio she'd smuggled from Atlanta. Someone hooked a Bluetooth speaker to a playlist of old soul and beach acoustic, Otis Redding, Al Green, a little Leon Bridges. We ate shrimp boils on paper plates, laughed until the sun dipped low, danced barefoot in the sand as fireflies blinked awake. 7 people, 7 toasts, 7 hugs that felt like armor. But when the music softened and Julian helped stack chairs, I slipped away to a quiet corner of the porch. I opened my phone, habit, stupidity, whatever you want to call it. 0 messages from family. Not one congratulations. Not one sorry we missed it. Nothing. As if the day had been erased. Then I opened Instagram. Lauren's feed was a rose gold explosion. Yacht club lawn, long tables draped in blush linen, a balloon arch spelling "It's a girl" in metallic foil. Photos of mom laughing with a mimosa, dad holding a tiny pink onesie like it was made of gold, Aunt Clara posing with gift bags. The final slide, a group shot, Lauren in the center, glowing, hand on her belly, surrounded by faces I'd invited to my wedding. Caption: couldn't ask for more love today. Family is forever. #girlmom. #blessed. Posted while I was saying I do to 7 people and a row of empty white chairs.
I zoomed in.
In the background, Tyler stood off to the side, phone to his ear, jaw clenched, looking anything but celebratory. I filed it away. Odd, but not my circus anymore. That night back in the loft, Julian and I collapsed on the couch. Windows open, marsh crickets humming like a lullaby. Coyotes we'd saved from the arch sat in mason jars around the room, filling the air with salt and green. Julian traced circles on my palm. I married the strongest, most beautiful woman I know, he said quietly. In front of 7 witnesses who actually showed up. I tried to smile. I keep thinking if I just called one more time. You called enough, Adeline. His voice was gentle steel. More than enough. The tears came then, not loud sobs, but the quiet kind that leak out when you finally stop holding everything together. Not because I was shattered. Because I was exhausted from pretending I wasn't. What I didn't know, what Julian had kept locked away so our wedding wouldn't be tainted by money or expectations, was that Elias Whitaker had been working behind the scenes for months. A week after the wedding, Elias invited us upstairs to his apartment. Not the casual drop-by knock. A proper invitation, handwritten note slipped under our door. Coffee, Sunday, 10 a.m. important. We went up. He'd set the table with a French press, 3 mugs, and a worn leather portfolio. He poured slowly, then opened the portfolio. Inside, old gallery catalogs from Whitaker Fine Art, Atlanta, glossy pages of artists I recognized from museum plaques. Articles clipped from Art in America, photographs of Elias at openings beside painters whose work now sold for 6 figures. I ran the gallery for 28 years, he said, voice steady. Represented 47 artists. 12 are in permanent collections now, High Museum, Ogden, a few in Europe. Julian and I stared. The quiet man in tweed vests who charged us $900 a month for a loft with perfect north light and never once nagged about late rent had been one of the most respected dealers in the Southeast. You never said, I whispered. You never needed to know. Until now. He slid a contract across the table. Elias had sent Julian's portfolio, unasked, to a major private collector in Atlanta, Harlan Voss. Voss, whose collection included works by Sally Mann, Hiroshi Sugimoto, and rising contemporary photographers. Voss had bought 3 of Julian's prints outright. $72,000. Wired 2 weeks before our wedding. Julian looked at me. I was going to tell you after. Didn't want the day to be about money. Elias continued. Harlan wants more. A commission, 15 new works over the next 20 months. Total value, $380,000. Installment payments. All rights protected. Then the second bombshell, an invitation from Crestwood Gallery on King Street in Charleston, one of the top contemporary spaces in the South. Solo exhibition. Title, The Unoccupied Seat. Centered on a new series Julian had been quietly building, large black and white prints exploring absence, empty porches at dusk, vacant church pews, a row of white chairs under live oaks with sea oats on each, 33 empty, 7 filled with soft, shadowed figures. The centerpiece, a single large print titled May 25th, 40 chairs. 7 occupied. Light falling across the vacant ones like unanswered questions. Already reserved by Harlan Voss. Asking price, $95,000. We drove to Charleston the next week to sign papers at a lawyer's office on Broad Street. I sat in a leather chair reading every line while my hands shook, not from nerves, but from the sheer weight of what was real. This was more than Dad had earned in a decade at the insurance firm. Elias came along. When the ink dried, he placed a hand on Julian's shoulder. This is just the door opening. Harlan doesn't collect lightly. He invests in legacies. We hadn't told a soul in my family. They still pictured Julian as the artsy guy who couldn't afford a real ring. They had no idea the tide had turned. A month later, Harlan Voss called Julian directly, speakerphone, paint still on Julian's fingers from developing prints. I hear you two didn't get the honeymoon you deserved. My boat's docked in the Bahamas next month. 10 days. Bring your cameras. Consider it gratitude for the early work. The boat, a 160-foot sailing yacht, teak decks, private chef, staterooms with ocean views. Harlan hosted artists, curators, collectors, part floating gallery, part retreat. Julian looked at me. I thought of the empty chairs, Dad's promise, Lauren's balloons. I thought of every time I'd made myself smaller. I nodded. We'll go. Mara's reaction when I told her, your family thinks he's broke, and you're about to be on a billionaire's yacht? Karma's loading her gun. We packed light. I posted nothing. Not yet. But the world was about to catch up, and when it did, the silence from my family would turn into 400-plus desperate messages overnight. We flew to Nassau in early July. The yacht, Harlan Voss's Serene Horizon, waited at the marina like something out of a dream I hadn't earned yet. Teak decks gleaming under the sun, white sails furled, crew in crisp polos. Our stateroom had floor-to-ceiling windows opening to turquoise water, fresh orchids on the nightstand, Egyptian cotton sheets that felt like clouds. I stood on the private balcony the first morning, barefoot in a linen sundress, watching the horizon melt into sky, and thought, this is what happens when the people who should have shown up are replaced by the ones who actually see you. Harlan hosted dinners on the upper deck most nights, small groups, a curator from the Smithsonian, a collector from Miami, a photographer whose work hung in the Louvre's modern wing. One evening, as the sky bled orange to deep indigo, Harlan raised his glass. To Julian Cole, the eye that captures what most people walk past. His upcoming show at Crestwood, The Unoccupied Seat, is going to shift conversations. Julian spoke simply. The series was about spaces left empty by choice, porches without laughter, pews without prayer, chairs under oaks waiting for people who never arrived.
He didn't name the wedding.
He didn't have to. The curator leaned forward. This has the weight of personal truth. It lingers. I sat beside my husband, hand on his knee, surrounded by people who valued what we'd built, not in spite of its quiet start, but because of it. On the last night, I did something rare. I posted one photo. Me at the bow in a simple white dress, Julian behind me, chin on my shoulder, the Bahamian sunset turning the water to molten gold. In the foreground, half visible, the Crestwood exhibition catalog with Julian's name embossed. Caption: honeymoon with my husband. Grateful for the people who showed up when it mattered. I posted at 8:47 p.m. Island Time, 2:47 a.m. East Coast. Then I turned off notifications and slept to the sound of waves against the hull. Morning came. My phone was a war zone. 428 notifications. Missed calls, texts, DMs, a tidal wave from the same family that couldn't spare one message on May 25th. Dad, 27 missed calls. Text stacking. Adeline, whose boat is that? Call me immediately. I had no idea Julian was this successful. Honey, please pick up. Mom, 21 calls. Oh my God, Addie, is that the Bahamas? We're so proud. We need to celebrate when you're home. Lauren, 9 calls. Texts. Wait, what? Julian's art is selling like that? We should talk. Call me. Aunts, uncles, cousins, people who'd RSVP'd no with polite regrets, now flooding in, always knew he had it in him. So, happy for you both. Tyler even texted me directly. First time ever. Adeline, congrats. If Julian's looking for representation or connections, I've got some names. I read them all. Responded to none. That afternoon, I unlocked the family chat. Typed once, revised twice, sent. Thank you for the messages. Julian and I are well. For those asking, he signed a major commission 6 weeks before our wedding. The yacht belongs to his collector, Harlan Voss, a gift for his work. Our honeymoon was earned. I won't pretend May 25th didn't hurt. My father promised to walk me down the aisle, and didn't. My mother chose a gender reveal over her daughter's vows. My sister booked her event on my date, knowing full well. Individual calls, guilt trips, the implication that I was used to coming second. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done performing for an audience that never applauded. If I'm ready, I'll reach out. Until then, please give me space.
Sent.
Silence for 4 hours. Then the calls started again. I let them ring. 3 weeks later we were back in Charleston. Crestwood Gallery issued the press release. Julian Cole, the unoccupied seat. Art publications picked it up. Art South, Burnaway, even a mention in the New York Times photo blog. Opening night, 180 people. Collectors in linen suits, critics with notepads, strangers standing silent in front of the centerpiece. May 25th, 40 white chairs under live oaks. 7 filled with soft, shadowed figures who looked like real people who cared. 33 empty, sunlight slicing across them like regret made visible. Sold to Harlan before the doors opened. $95,000. A reporter asked Julian. The title, autobiographical? He answered plainly, yes. My wife's wedding day. 7 guests. 40 chairs. The absences are the subject. By morning the story spread. Local news ran segments. Social media buzzed. Dad saw it first. Someone forwarded the Times link. Mom called, voice thin. Your father's been sitting in the den for hours staring at that photo. He hasn't said a word. I said, Julian painted what happened, Mom.
Not me.
Lauren's reaction wasn't sorrow. It was panic. Her perfect narrative cracked. Friends started asking, wait, you weren't at your sister's wedding? Her Instagram slowed to a trickle. Tyler's shipping company hit rough water. 2 contracts lost, creditors circling. The Range Rover became a leased SUV. Lauren started selling handbags on consignment sites. 2 months later, Tyler's company filed Chapter 11. The mortgage payments on my parents' house stopped. Mom's car payment lapsed. Lauren got a job, real one, coordinating events for a local nonprofit. First paycheck in 9 years. Dad called. First time since the article. Adeline, we might lose the house. I have no right to ask, but I let the silence stretch, the same silence I'd lived in on my wedding morning. Dad, I said evenly, 6 months ago you chose a balloon arch over your daughter's vows.
You broke a promise that day.
I walked with our landlord because showing up for me wasn't worth the drive. I'm not your safety net. I'm your daughter. And you made me feel optional. Long pause. Then, softly, you're right. I was wrong. Not enough, but a crack. Lauren wrote a letter months later, pen on paper, mailed with a stamp. I booked it on your day on purpose. I was terrified if your wedding felt bigger, everyone would stop centering me.
I'm sorry.
Not just for the day. For years. I read it 4 times. Folded it into a drawer. Not trash. Not framed. Just there, when I'm ready. Today I stand on the porch of our cottage in Folly Beach. Small 2-bedroom. Paid in cash from Julian sales and my new book illustration contract with a major publisher. North-facing studio for Julian downstairs. Lavender, I planted last spring blooming purple along the path. Elias comes for Sunday dinners, roast chicken, stories about old gallery days. Laughter that fills the rooms. Julian's working on a new series. I illustrate at the kitchen table, a children's book about a girl who plants seeds in cracked earth and watches them grow anyway. Sometimes Mom calls. She asks about the garden, the work. No asks for money.
Small.
True. People ask if I forgave them. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's planks on a bridge. Some days you lay one. Some days you stand at the edge deciding if the crossing is worth it. What matters? I stopped counting the empty chairs and started counting the ones that filled.
7 people showed up that day.
They're still here. Self-respect doesn't shout. It doesn't burn bridges. It just stops crossing them when they lead nowhere. If this story sat heavy on your chest, if you've ever been the one in the empty row while the spotlight went elsewhere, I see you. You were never invisible. Now my question for you. If 428 messages poured in after years of silence, would you answer? Or would you let them ring? Drop it in the comments. I read every one. If this hit home and you want more stories like it, check the description for the next one. Hit subscribe, not for me, for the reminder that you're not alone when the chairs stay empty. Thank you for staying till the end.